2 weeks after Soul's Pride first docked at Nexus Prime, the station was busier than it had been in decades. Ships from across the sector were arriving to see the humans and learn about their techniques. The first to arrive was the Korth delegation. The Korth were master builders, a species that had constructed most of the Empire's greatest structures. Their leader, Master Builder Klanktar, came specifically to meet Dongmin. "We have heard you can repair anything," Klanktar said through his translator. His voice sounded like grinding metal, which made sense since he was essentially a living machine. "I can fix most things," Dongmin replied modestly. "What's the problem?" "The Great Bridge of Sector 7 has been under construction for 800 years. It should have been completed centuries ago, but we keep encountering structural failures." Dongmin looked at the engineering plans Klanktar provided. The Great Bridge was supposed to span the space between two star systems, providing a permanent transportation link. It was an incredible project, requiring engineering on a scale humans had never attempted. "I see the problem," Dongmin said, after studying the plans for an hour. "You're building it like a bridge on a planet, but space doesn't work like planets." "Explain." "On a planet, you build against gravity. In space, you have to build with gravity. These stars are moving, the space between them is full of gravitational currents, and your bridge is fighting against all of that instead of using it." Dongmin sketched some modifications on the plans. "What if instead of a rigid structure you made it flexible? Let it move with the gravitational currents instead of fighting them." "Flexible?" Klanktar sounded horrified. "Structures must be strong and permanent. Strong, yes. Permanent, yes. But flexible can be stronger than rigid. A tree bends in the wind but doesn't break. A rigid post snaps." Within days, Dongmin was working with the best Korth engineers in the Empire, redesigning 800 years of construction work. The new plans used human concepts of adaptive engineering combined with Korth mastery of materials science. Meanwhile, Haiwan's medical work was causing excitement among the Empire's doctors. Dr. Jin A. Seo arrived from a distant research station after hearing about the Universal Medical Scanner project. "Dr. Choi," she said when they met. "I'm Dr. Seo from the Earth Medical Research Division." Haiwan was confused. "Earth Medical Research Division? But Earth doesn't have contact with the Empire." Jin A smiled. "Well, they do now. I'm from the research ship Busan's Hope. We followed the same navigation error you did about a week ago." "There are more human ships here?" "3 more so far, with more coming. Word got back to Earth about your discovery, and everyone wants to see this galactic empire for themselves." Jin'e brought with her a team of human medical researchers and a cargo hold full of Earth's most advanced medical equipment. When they combined human adaptability with Velthari precision and Korth engineering, the results were remarkable. "Look at this," Haiwan said, showing Jin'e their latest creation. "It can diagnose diseases in any carbon-based life form, analyze the biochemistry of silicon-based beings, and even detect problems in energy-based entities." "How many species can it treat?" "All of them. Every species in the Empire database, plus room for new ones we haven't met yet." Dr. Sithara was watching the humans work with fascination. "In 6 months, you have created medical technology that we thought would take centuries to develop." "That's the advantage of starting fresh," Jin'e explained. "You knew too much about why things couldn't be done. We didn't know it was impossible, so we did it anyway." The logistics improvements were having even more dramatic effects. Bora had been joined by Captain Wu Jin-o, a former Earth cargo pilot who specialized in supply chain management. "This is incredible," Wu Jin said, looking at the Empire's shipping network. "You have the most inefficient cargo system I've ever seen, but also the most potential." "What do you mean?" asked Controller Vexting. "You have thousands of worlds producing goods, millions of ships that could carry cargo, and perfect communication systems. But you're using 19th century logistics to manage 25th century technology." Bora had already started implementing her test routes, and the results were impressive. Cargo that used to take months to deliver was arriving in weeks. Ships that used to travel empty were carrying profitable loads. Worlds that had waited years for supplies were getting what they needed quickly. "We could revolutionize the entire Imperial economy, Wujin told Regional Administrator Thexmari, but we'll need authorization to work on a larger scale. Thexmari was beginning to feel overwhelmed. In 2 weeks, the humans had started projects that could change fundamental aspects of how the Empire operated, and more humans kept arriving. The latest arrival was Ambassador Kyung-Soo Han from the United Earth Space Administration, traveling on the diplomatic vessel Seoul's Light with a full negotiation team. Regional Administrator Thexmari, Ambassador Han said during their first meeting, "I'm here to discuss formal relations between Earth and the Velthari Empire. Earth wishes to join the Empire? Not exactly. We'd prefer to establish diplomatic and trade relations as equals." Thexmari nearly choked on his drink. "Equals? Your entire species has 4 ships in our territory." "For now," Han said calmly. "But we're expanding rapidly. Earth's shipyards are working overtime to build more vessels. We expect to have 50 ships in Imperial space within 6 months. 50 ships is nothing compared to our fleets. No, but 50 ships full of humans might be worth more than 1,000 ships full of conventional forces." "What do you mean?" Han gestured to the reports on Thexmari's desk. "In 2 weeks, a crew of 4 humans has started changes that affect your entire sector. What do you think 50 ships of humans could accomplish? Are you threatening us? On Disay. The contrary, we're offering to help, but we'd prefer to do it as partners rather than subjects." Thexmari was quiet for a long moment. The humans had been nothing but helpful and polite, but their very presence was destabilizing systems that had been unchanged for millennia. "What does Earth want?" he finally asked. "Mining rights in unclaimed systems, technology exchange programs, trade agreements, academic cooperation, the usual things that civilized species discuss. And in return, we share our knowledge freely, we help solve problems. We contribute to the Empire's growth and prosperity, without accepting Imperial authority?" Han smiled. "We'll follow Imperial law in Imperial territory. We'll respect Imperial sovereignty. We'll work within Imperial systems, but we won't bow to Imperial authority simply because it exists. No species has ever demanded such terms. No species has ever offered what humans can offer." That evening, Thexmari called an emergency meeting of his senior staff. The humans had been on his station for 2 weeks, and they had changed more things than most species changed in centuries. "Sir," reported Chief of Security Vashatel, "the humans have made no aggressive moves. They follow all regulations. They're polite to everyone, and they pay for everything they use. But?" Thexmari could sense there was more. "But they're spreading ideas that are disturbing to some species." "What kind of ideas?" "That improvement is always possible. That authority should be earned rather than inherited. That efficiency matters more than tradition. And other species are listening to these ideas?" "Yes, sir. The Korth have started questioning why they've been building the same way for thousands of years. The Meltari are asking why their communication protocols haven't been updated. Even some Velthari are wondering why we do things the way we do." Them. Thexmari realized he was facing an unprecedented situation. The humans weren't conquering the Empire with weapons or technology. They were changing it with ideas. "Sir," his aide Kelvan added, "we've received a message from the High Council. They want a full report on the human situation." "What did you tell them?" "That it's complicated." Thexmari looked out his office window at the busy docking bay. He could see human ships alongside Velthari vessels, human technicians working with alien engineers, human doctors treating patients from a dozen different species. "Kelvan, send a message to the High Council. Tell them we need guidance on how to handle a species that improves everything they touch, but refuses to acknowledge our superiority." "Sir, they may not understand that message." "Then tell them we've encountered humans and nothing will ever be the same again." As Thexmari worked late into the night, he could see the changes happening throughout his station. Lights burned in laboratories where humans and aliens worked together on impossible projects. Cargo bays hummed with activity as new shipping systems moved goods with unprecedented efficiency. Medical bays treated patients that no one had been able to help before. The humans weren't trying to conquer the Velthari Empire. They were trying to improve it. And that, Thexmari realized, might be far more dangerous than any invasion. Captain Hyun-woo Kim stared at the coffee cup floating next to his head and sighed. The mining ship Soul's Pride had been his home for 3 years, and he still couldn't get used to zero-gravity coffee. He grabbed the cup and took a sip while checking the navigation display. They were close to the asteroid field, and this job could make them all rich. "Captain, we're getting some strange readings from that big rock," said Bo-Ra Park from her seat at the navigation console. She was young, maybe 25, but she knew space better than most people twice her age. Her fingers moved across the controls like she was playing piano. Hyunwoo floated over to look at her screen. The asteroid was huge, maybe 2 kilometers across, and it was glowing with energy signatures they had never seen before. "Dongmin, what do you think?" he called to the engineer. "Dongmin." Lee pushed himself away from the engine controls and drifted over to them. His hands were always dirty from fixing things, and today was no different. "Those readings are crazy, Captain. If that rock has what I think it has, we could buy our own planet." The 4th crew member, Haewon Choi, was already preparing her equipment. As the team's scientist, she got excited about anything new or strange. "The mineral composition is unlike anything in our database. We need to get closer." Hyunwoo made his decision. "Bo-Ra, take us in. Nice and slow. Dongmin, prep the mining gear. Haewon, start recording everything." Soul's Pride moved toward the asteroid like a careful predator. The ship was not pretty. It looked like a metal box with engines stuck on the back, but it was tough and reliable. Just like its crew. "Captain, the energy readings are getting stronger," Bo-Ra said. Her voice had a note of worry. "I've never seen anything like this." "Maybe it's some kind of new element," Haewon said. She was checking her instruments and making notes. "The energy patterns are regular, almost like they're artificial." Dongmin laughed. "Artificial? Out here? The only artificial thing for light years is us." They were wrong. As Soul's Pride got closer to the asteroid, the readings became even stranger. The rock was not just glowing, it was pulsing like a heartbeat. The energy was coming from inside, and it was getting stronger. "Captain, I'm getting interference with our systems," Dongmin said. His easy smile was gone now. "Whatever that thing is, it's messing with our electronics." Hyunwoo felt the first touch of real concern. "Can you compensate?" "Working on it," Dongmin said. His fingers flew over his controls. "The jump drive is acting weird. Really weird." "What kind of weird?" Bo-Ra asked. "The kind that makes me want to be somewhere else," Dongmin replied. But it was too late. The asteroid's energy field reached out and grabbed Soul's Pride like an invisible hand. The ship's systems went crazy. Lights flashed, alarms screamed, and the artificial gravity failed completely. "Emergency jump!" Hyunwoo shouted. "Get us out of here!" Dongmin slammed his hand on the jump drive controls. "Jumping now." The universe exploded into light and color. Soul's Pride was caught in the asteroid's energy field when the jump drive activated, and something impossible happened. Instead of a normal jump to the next asteroid field, they were pulled through space and time in a way that human technology had never achieved. The light faded. The alarm stopped. The ship drifted in normal space again. "Everyone okay?" Hyunwoo asked. "Define." "Okay," Bo-Ra said weakly. She was looking at her navigation screen with a very confused expression. "Captain, we have a problem." "What kind of problem?" "The kind where I have no idea where we are," she said. "None of the stars match our database. Nothing looks familiar." Haewon was already running scans of their surroundings. "Captain, you need to see this." Hyunwoo looked out the main window and felt his stomach drop. They were not in empty space. They were surrounded by the biggest artificial structures he had ever seen. Space stations the size of cities floated in perfect formation. Ships longer than skyscrapers moved between them in organized patterns. "Well," Hyunwoo said after a long moment, "that's definitely not the asteroid field." "Captain," Haewon said, her voice full of wonder, "I'm reading thousands of different energy signatures. This isn't just one civilization, there are dozens of different technologies here. Bora was working frantically at her console. I can't get a fix on Earth, I can't get a fix on anything. We could be anywhere in the galaxy. Dongmin was staring at his engine readings. The jump drive is completely fried. Whatever happened, we're not going anywhere soon. They watched in amazement as massive alien ships moved past their tiny mining vessel. Some of the ships were sleek and beautiful, like metal art floating through space. Others were huge and blocky, designed for function over form. A few looked like they were grown rather than built with organic curves and surfaces. This is incredible, Haewon whispered. We're looking at an entire galactic civilization. Yeah, and they probably don't know we exist, Hyunwoo said. Let's keep it that way until we figure out what's going on. But keeping secrets in space is hard when you're the only human ship in a galaxy full of aliens. One of the massive space stations began moving toward them. It was the size of a small moon, covered in lights and docking bays. As it approached, Seoul's Pride looked like a toy boat next to an aircraft carrier. They've seen us, Bora said unnecessarily. Captain, we're being scanned, Haewon reported. Multiple energy beams, very sophisticated. Are they weapons? Dongmin asked. No, I think they're just curious. Hyunwoo made his decision. Bora, open a communication channel, basic mathematical signals. To who? Everyone. Let them know. We're here and we're peaceful. Bora began transmitting simple mathematical sequences, prime numbers, basic equations, universal constants. It was the standard first contact protocol that humans had developed for meeting alien life. The response came quickly. Mathematical signals came back, more complex than theirs, but clearly showing intelligence. Then came images, star charts, simple pictures, basic concepts. They're trying to communicate, Haewon said excitedly, and they're being very patient about it. Within an hour, they had established basic communication with the aliens. The process was helped by the fact that mathematics and physics work the same way everywhere in the universe. Soon they were exchanging simple concepts and ideas. The aliens seemed as curious about humans as the humans were about them. They sent pictures of their ships, their technology, their cities. In return, the humans sent images of Earth, of human, cities of their own technology. Captain, Haewon said, I think they want us to dock with their space station. Hyunwoo looked at the massive structure approaching them. It was bigger than anything humans had ever built. It could probably hold their entire ship in one of its smaller docking bays. Well, he said, we came out here looking for something valuable. I'd say we found it. What do you mean? Bora asked. First contact with alien civilization? The scientific value alone is worth more than all the platinum in the solar system. Dongmin grinned. Plus, we need to fix our jump drive. Maybe they can help. You want to ask aliens to fix our spaceship? Bora asked. Why not? Engineers are engineers, right? I bet some problems are universal. Hyunwoo made his decision. Send a reply. Tell them we accept their invitation. As Seoul's Pride began moving toward the alien space station, none of the crew realized they had just stepped into the territory of the Velthari Empire, a civilization that controlled half the galaxy, and had never met a species quite like humans. They were about to discover that sometimes the best way to handle a galactic empire is to treat it like any other business opportunity. The docking process took 3 hours, and every minute of it was fascinating. The alien space station had technology that made human engineering look like stone tools. Docking arms that could think, energy fields that guided ships into place, and artificial gravity that worked perfectly even in the docking bays. This is incredible, Dongmin said as Seoul's Pride settled into its assigned berth. Look at those energy readings. They're using power systems we haven't even dreamed of. Captain Hyunwoo was more practical. Can we learn from it? Give me a week and I'll have some ideas, Dongmin replied. Through the docking bay windows, they could see their first live aliens. The creatures were tall and thin, with 4 arms and skin that changed color like a mood ring. They moved with careful precision, checking equipment and making notes on devices that looked like floating crystals. Velthari, Haewon read from her translation device. The mathematical communication had evolved quickly once the aliens realized humans were intelligent. That's what they call themselves. What do they call us? Bora asked. The translation is rough, but I think it means the small, loud ones. Hyunwoo laughed. That's fair. A delegation of Velthari approached their ship. The leader was taller than the others, with more elaborate markings on his skin. His forearms moved in complex patterns that the translation device said meant formal greeting. Captain Kim, the translation device spoke in a mechanical voice. I am Fleet Commander Zethral. You are the first of your species we have encountered. This is a historic moment. Hyunwoo opened the ship's communication system. Fleet Commander, this is Captain Kim. Thank you for your hospitality. We're honored to meet you. You honor us by accepting our invitation. Please, will you come aboard our station? We have prepared a formal reception. We'd be happy to, Hyunwoo replied. Should we bring anything? Gifts? Documentation? There was a pause. The translation device was clearly working hard. Documentation? Ship registration, crew identification, cargo manifest, the usual paperwork. Another pause. Paperwork? Haewon whispered. Captain, I don't think they were expecting this approach. What were they expecting? Hyunwoo whispered back. Fear, probably. Most species are terrified when they first meet a galactic empire. Why? They seem nice enough. The Velthari delegation was having a similar conversation among themselves. Through the translation device, the humans could hear fragments of their discussion. They want to show us documentation? Perhaps it is a ritual of their species. They seem very calm for a primitive race. Are we certain they are primitive? Their ship uses unknown technology. Fleet Commander Zethral spoke again. Captain Kim, please bring whatever documentation you feel is appropriate. We are curious about your customs. An hour later, the human crew was walking through corridors that belonged in a science fiction movie. The walls were made of some kind of crystal that glowed softly, and the floors adjusted to each person's height and weight automatically. Everything was beautiful and functional at the same time. This place is amazing, Bora said, looking around in wonder. Must cost a fortune to maintain, Hyunwoo observed. But if you've got thousands of worlds contributing to the budget, I guess you can afford it. The Velthari escort, a younger officer named Kethmore, seemed confused by this comment. You think in terms of cost? Everything has a cost, Hyunwoo explained. Time, materials, labor. The question is whether the benefits justify the expense. But this is Nexus Prime, the administrative center for this entire sector. Cost is not a consideration. Cost is always a consideration, Dongmin said. Even if you have unlimited resources, you still have to decide how to use them efficiently. Kethmore made notes on his floating crystal device. The humans were clearly not reacting the way most species did to Velthari architecture. They were led to a large chamber filled with representatives from dozens of different species. Some looked almost human. Others were completely alien. A few existed as energy beings inside containment suits. All of them were staring at the humans with intense curiosity. Fleet Commander Zethral stood at the center of the chamber. Honored beings, he announced. I present the humans of the vessel Soul's Pride. They represent a species new to galactic civilization. The chamber filled with excited chatter in dozens of languages. The translation device worked overtime to make sense of it all. Where is their homeworld? How did they develop space travel so quickly? Are there more of them? What do they want? Hyunwoo stepped forward. Thank you all for this warm welcome. We're explorers and miners from a world called Earth. We're here by accident. Our navigation system malfunctioned. But we're grateful for the chance to meet all of you. Miners? One of the aliens asked. It looked like a walking tree with crystals for leaves. You extract resources? That's right. Back home, we mine asteroids for rare minerals. It's good work, and space is full of resources nobody's using. Nobody's using? Fleet Commander Zethral asked. All resources in this sector belong to the Velthari Empire. Oh, Hyunwoo said. Well, that's fine. Do you have a licensing system? We'd be happy to pay fees or royalties. The chamber went quiet. This was not the response anyone had expected. You wish to pay for the right to mine in our territory? Zethral asked carefully. Of course. We're not pirates. If these are your asteroid fields, then you deserve compensation for their use. That's just good business. Haywan stepped forward. We're also scientists and researchers. We'd be interested in cultural and technological exchange programs if you're open to that. Exchange programs? Asked a floating jellyfish-like creature. Sure. We share our knowledge and techniques. You share yours. Everyone benefits. Bora added. We're also good at logistics and transportation. If you need cargo moved efficiently, we know how to optimize shipping routes. Dongmin couldn't resist adding, and if you have any engineering problems, we're pretty good at finding creative solutions. The aliens looked at each other in confusion. They had protocols for many different first contact scenarios, hostile species, fearful species, primitive species begging for protection, but they had no protocol for a species that immediately began discussing business opportunities. Fleet Commander Zethral tried to regain control of the situation. Humans of Soul's Pride, you must understand. The Velthari Empire controls thousands of worlds and hundreds of species. We are an ancient civilization with technology beyond your current understanding. That's impressive, Hyunwoo said. You must have incredible logistical challenges. How do you coordinate everything? Faster than light. Communication, quantum entanglement networks. Yes, we have advanced communication systems. What about resource allocation? With thousands of worlds, you must have some that produce too much of certain goods and others that need them. The transportation costs alone must be enormous. Zethral was beginning to look overwhelmed. These are complex administrative matters. Oh, we're not trying to interfere, Bora said helpfully. We're just curious. Back home, we're always looking for ways to improve efficiency. You want to improve our efficiency? Asked the tree-like alien. Well, everyone can improve, Dongmin said. No system is perfect. There's always room for optimization. Even in a galactic empire? Zethral asked weakly. Especially in a galactic empire, Hyunwoo said. The bigger the system, the more places where small improvements can make huge differences. The humans spent the next hour answering questions and asking their own. They treated the Velthari Empire like they would treat any large corporation, with respect, but also with the assumption that business could be conducted between equals. By the end of the reception, half the aliens in the chamber were taking notes on human ideas about efficiency and organization. The other half were in shock that anyone could be so casual about meeting a galactic empire. As they returned to their ship, Kethmore asked Hyunwoo a question that had been bothering him. Captain Kim, are your people not afraid of us? Hyunwoo thought about it. Should we be? You've been nothing but polite and helpful. But we control thousands of worlds. We have technology far beyond yours. We could destroy your ship with a thought. But you won't, Hyunwoo said confidently. You're civilized beings. You invited us here, you fed us, you answered our questions. That's not the behavior of people who destroy ships for no reason. How can you be so certain? Because you're talking to us instead of shooting at us. In our experience, people who want to hurt you don't usually start with formal receptions. Kethmore made more notes. He was beginning to suspect that humans were going to change things in ways the Velthari Empire had never experienced. 3 days later, Dongmin was elbow-deep in alien machinery and he had never been happier. The Velthari engineers had been curious about human repair techniques, so they invited him to work on some of their equipment problems. This is fascinating, he told Korth engineer Melvak, a being that looked like a metal crab with too many tools for hands. You build things to last forever, but you never build them to be fixed. Why would we build them to break? Melvak asked. Through his translation device. Things don't break because you build them to break. They break because the universe is messy and chaotic. Stars explode. Asteroids hit things. Metal gets tired. Everything breaks eventually. Dongmin was working on a water recycling system that had been broken for 6 months. The Velthari solution was to replace the entire system. The human solution was to figure out which part was actually broken and fix just that part. See this valve here? It's stuck because metal particles got into the fluid. Your people wanted to replace the whole system, but really you just need to clean the valve and add a filter. A filter? Yeah, a screen that catches particles before they can cause problems. Preventive maintenance. It's cheaper than replacing everything. Melvok watched as Dongmin used simple human tools to repair equipment that Velthari engineers had declared unfixable. Within an hour, the water system was working perfectly. This filter idea, Melvok said slowly. Could it work on other systems? Sure. Filters, cleaners, regular inspections. The idea is to catch problems before they become disasters. By the end of the day, Dongmin had a dozen Velthari engineers learning human maintenance techniques. Word spread quickly through the station's technical staff. Meanwhile, Heiwan was having the time of her life in the station's medical bay. She was working with Dr. Sithara, a snake-like being with 6 arms and more medical knowledge than any human university. Your species is remarkable, Dr. Sithara said, studying Heiwan's scans. You have no specialization at all. What do you mean? Every species in the Empire has evolved for specific environments and functions. The Korth are builders, the Meltari are communicators, the Yindar are analysts. But humans, you are generalists. Is that bad? It is unprecedented. Your brain can adapt to almost any problem. Your body can survive in environments that would kill most species. You have no natural gifts, but you can learn to do anything. Heiwan was examining alien medical equipment while they talked. This is incredible technology, but it's so specialized. This scanner can only detect Velthari diseases. This one only works on silicon-based life forms. Don't you have anything that works on everyone? Why would we need such a device? Each species has its own medical specialists. But what if you're in an emergency? What if the specialist isn't available? What if you encounter a new species? Dr. Sithara had never considered these questions. In the Velthari Empire, everything was organized and predictable. There were specialists for every situation and protocols for every problem. Your medical equipment is amazing, Heiwan continued. But what if we combined it? Use the Velthari scanner with the Korth analyzer and the Meltari sensor. We could make something that works on any species. That would be highly irregular, but it would work, right? Within hours, Heiwan and Dr. Sithara were designing medical equipment that had never existed before. Other doctors from different species joined the project, contributing their own specialized knowledge to create something that could help anyone. Bo-Ra, meanwhile, was in the station's traffic control center, and she was horrified by what she saw. You're telling me it takes 6 months to get supplies from the core worlds to the outer rim? She asked Controller Vexting, a being that looked like a floating brain in a glass helmet. That is the standard delivery time, yes. But why? I've seen your ships, they're fast enough to make the trip in 2 weeks. The cargo must be processed through proper channels. Inspected, cataloged, approved for transport, assigned to appropriate vessels, scheduled for delivery windows. Bo-Ra was looking at the cargo routing system, and it made her head hurt. You have 17 different approval stages for a simple supply delivery? Each stage serves a vital function in maintaining imperial order. But look at this. Cargo sits in warehouses for months waiting for approval. Ships make trips half empty because the cargo isn't ready. You have food rotting on one world while another world is hungry, just because the paperwork isn't finished. The system has worked for 50,000 years, but it could work better. Bo-Ra spent the afternoon showing Controller Vexting how human cargo systems worked. Instead of sequential approvals, humans used parallel processing. Instead of rigid schedules, they used dynamic routing. Instead of specialized ships for each type of cargo, they used flexible, multi-purpose vessels. This is very irregular, Vexting said, but he was taking notes. But the efficiency improvements would be significant. Want to try a test run? We could set up a small route, see how it works. By evening, news of the humans' activities had reached Regional Administrator Thexmari. He was an ancient Veltari, over 3,000 years old, and he had never seen anything like this. His reports were confusing, The humans were not trying to challenge imperial authority. They were not demanding territory or resources. They were not even asking for special privileges. They were just improving things. The maintenance crews were learning human repair techniques and solving problems that had existed for years. The medical staff were designing new equipment that could help species they had never been able to treat before. The logistics department was testing shipping routes that could cut delivery times by 80%. And through it all, the humans acted like this was perfectly normal. "Sir," his aide, Junior Administrator Kelvan, reported, "the human captain has requested a meeting with you." "What does he want?" "He says he wants to discuss establishing formal trade relations between his species and the Empire." "Trade relations?" "He represents one small ship." "Yes, sir, but he acts as if he represents an entire government." Dexmari decided to take the meeting. He was curious about these beings who had caused more change in 3 days than his sector had seen in 3 centuries. Captain Hyunwoo arrived at the appointment exactly on time, carrying a folder full of papers and looking like he was attending a business meeting. "Administrator Thexmari, thank you for seeing me. I have a proposition that I think could benefit both our peoples. Please, sit." "What kind of proposition?" Hyunwoo opened his folder and pulled out charts and graphs. "My crew and I have been observing your operations here, and we've noticed some inefficiencies that we might be able to help with." "Inefficiencies?" "Nothing major. Every large organization has them. But we think there might be opportunities for mutual benefit." Hyunwoo spread his papers on Thexmari's desk. "For example, your mining operations in this sector. You're extracting about 60% of the available resources from each asteroid. Human techniques could increase that to 85%. And in return, we'd like mining rights in unclaimed areas, plus a percentage of the improved yields. Everyone wins." Thexmari studied the humans' projections. The numbers were impressive. "You believe you can increase our resource extraction by 25%? "Conservative estimate. My engineer thinks we could do better." "And your medical researcher believes she can create universal treatment devices?" "That's Dr. Choi's project, yes. She's very excited about it." "And your navigator thinks she can improve our cargo delivery systems?" "Bora's got some ideas, yeah. She's worked on supply chains her whole career." Thexmari leaned back in his chair. In 50,000 years of imperial history, no one had ever walked into an administrator's office and offered to improve the Empire's efficiency. "Captain Kim, do you understand what the Velthari Empire is? A large interstellar government, right? Thousands of worlds, millions of species, very old and established. We control half the galaxy. We have technology that can destroy stars. We have existed since before your species discovered fire." "That's impressive," Hyunwoo said sincerely. "You must have learned a lot in all that time. And yet you think you can teach us new things?" "Well, yeah. We've learned a lot too, just different things. You focused on stability and control. We focused on adaptation and efficiency. Maybe we can help each other." Thexmari realized he was dealing with a species that simply did not think the way other species thought. The humans were not intimidated by the Empire's age or power. They saw it as an opportunity. "Very well, Captain Kim, I will consider your proposals. But understand the Empire does not make changes lightly. Of course, change is always scary, but sometimes it's necessary." As Hyunwoo left the meeting, Thexmari sat alone in his office thinking. The humans had been on his station for 3 days, and they had already started processes that could transform how the Empire operated. The question was that a good thing or a terrifying thing? He was beginning to suspect it might be both. The emergency session of the Velthari High Council had been going for 6 hours, and High Counselor Veltheron was getting more frustrated by the minute. "Let me understand this correctly," he said, his forearms waving in agitation. "A species with 4 primitive ships has somehow convinced entire sectors to change procedures that have worked for 50,000 years. "That is correct, High Counselor," reported Regional Administrator Thexamari via holographic communication. "And they accomplished this through what? Military force? Advanced technology? Psychic manipulation? They offered to help make things work better." The council chamber fell silent. 30 of the Empire's most powerful leaders stared at Thexmari's image with expressions of complete confusion. "They offered to help?" asked Counselor Methvara, her skin shifting through several shades of purple. "Yes, Counselor," they identified. "Inefficiencies in our systems and suggested improvements. And our people accepted these suggestions?" Enthusiastically. High Counselor Veltharon felt a headache coming on, which was unusual since Velthari rarely got headaches. "Show us the reports." For the next hour, Thexmari presented the changes that had occurred in his sector since the humans arrived. Mining productivity was up 40%. Medical treatment success rates had improved by 60%. Cargo delivery times had been cut by 75%. Construction projects that had been stalled for decades were suddenly moving forward. "These improvements," said Counselor Yethlin, "they are real?" "Verified by independent auditors," Thexmari confirmed. "And the humans want nothing. In return, they want mining rights in unclaimed systems, technology sharing agreements, and recognition as an independent species rather than imperial subjects." The council chamber erupted in discussion. Every species that joined the Empire became part of the imperial hierarchy. There were no independent allies, no equal partners. The very concept was unprecedented. "This is impossible," declared Counselor Vashtanor. "No species refuses imperial authority. It is the natural order." "The humans don't seem to believe in natural order," Thexmari replied. "They believe in practical results." Meanwhile, on Nexus Prime, the practical results were becoming impossible to ignore. Dr. Sora Kang had arrived from Earth as part of a cultural research mission, and her work was causing problems throughout the Empire. "This is fascinating," she told Dr. Sithara as they reviewed her preliminary report. "Your empire is basically a massive feudal system, but with space travel." "Feudal? You have rigid hierarchies based on species rather than ability. Resources flow upward to the ruling class while information flows downward as orders. Innovation is discouraged because it might threaten the existing power structure. That is how civilized societies function," Dr. Sithara protested. "It's how some societies function, but not the most efficient ones. Look at these productivity numbers. Every time you introduce human-style cooperation and merit-based decision-making, productivity goes up." Dr. Kang's report was circulated through the Empire's academic networks, where it caused intense debate. For the first time in millennia, scholars were questioning basic assumptions about how galactic civilization should work. On the industrial world of Vex Prime, Korth workers read about human maintenance techniques and started asking why their supervisors didn't listen to their suggestions for improvement. On the communication hub of Meltar 7, technicians wondered why promotion was based on age rather than skill. The most disturbing development, from the High Council's perspective, was happening on the core worlds themselves. Young Velthari, who had read about human ideas, were starting to ask uncomfortable questions. "Father," said Zethmari, son of High Counselor Veltharon, during a family dinner, "why don't we promote people based on their abilities instead of their birth status?" Veltharon nearly choked on his food. "Because that is not how civilized society works, son. But the humans do it, and their productivity rates are incredible. The humans are barbarians. Barbarians who can solve engineering problems we've been working on for centuries." Similar conversations were happening in households across the Empire. The human ideas were spreading like a virus, carried by the Empire's own communication networks. Captain Tae Ho Lim had established the first human mining operation in Imperial space, working under a provisional license from Thexmari. His methods were so successful that other species were requesting human advisors for their own mining projects. "The secret isn't better technology," he explained to a gathering of Korth mining supervisors. "It's better teamwork. When everyone contributes ideas instead of just following orders, you find solutions you never would have discovered otherwise." "But how do you maintain order without strict hierarchy?" asked Supervisor Grexnall. "You don't maintain order. You create efficiency. When people understand the goal and have the freedom to find the best way to achieve it, they don't need orders." Within weeks, mining operations across 3 sectors had adopted human-style collaborative management. Production increased dramatically, But more importantly, worker satisfaction improved for the first time in recorded history. The High Council was receiving reports of similar changes throughout the empire. Dr. Mi Young-jung had revolutionized medical training by introducing the concept of cross-species treatment. Engineer Junho Park had solved structural problems on 12 different worlds by applying human principles of adaptive design. They're not trying to conquer us, Counselor Meth Vara observed during another emergency session. They're trying to improve us. Which may be worse, replied High Counselor Veltheron. A conquered species eventually accepts their fate, but a species that believes it can improve everything will never stop changing things. The military commanders were particularly concerned. Admiral Clethvar reported that human ideas were affecting fleet operations. Our ships are adopting human maintenance procedures which improves reliability, but reduces the need for specialized maintenance castes. Our logistics officers are using human supply management, which works better but requires them to make decisions without consulting higher authority. Are the humans attempting to infiltrate our military? Veltheron asked. No, sir. Our own officers are requesting human advisors. They want to learn these techniques. And you're allowing this? Sir, the improvements are undeniable. Fleets using human-advised procedures have 30% better readiness rates and 50% lower maintenance costs. The final straw came when Regional Administrator Thex Mari reported that several other species had requested to be transferred to human-administered sectors. They want to be ruled by humans? Veltheron asked incredulously. They want to work with humans, Thex Mari corrected. The humans don't rule anyone. They cooperate with everyone. That's impossible. Someone must be in charge. The humans seem to believe that whoever has the best idea should be in charge of implementing that idea, regardless of their species or rank. Veltheron felt his carefully ordered universe crumbling around him. What do they want from us? Nothing. We're not willing to give. They want to be treated as equals, to trade freely and to share knowledge. They're offering to help us solve problems in exchange for the right to exist independently, and if we refuse, they'll probably leave. They've never threatened anyone. They just improve things and move on. That night, Veltheron stood alone in his private chambers, looking out at the heart of the empire he had helped rule for over 2,000 years. Everything was exactly as it had always been, ordered, hierarchical, stable, and increasingly irrelevant. The humans had been in imperial space for 6 weeks, and they had started changes that would echo through the galaxy for generations. They hadn't conquered anything, hadn't demanded anything, hadn't threatened anyone. They had simply shown that things could be better. His son Zeth Mari entered the chamber. Father, I've been reading more about human organizational theory. Did you know that their most successful enterprises are run by people who started at the bottom and worked their way up based on merit? Son, our society has functioned perfectly for 50,000 years. Has it, though? Look at these productivity reports. Look at the happiness surveys. Look at the innovation indices. Every sector with human involvement is outperforming the rest of the empire. Veltheron turned to face his son. What are you suggesting? Maybe it's time to consider that the humans might be right about some things. For the first time in his long life, High Counselor Veltheron wondered if the empire he had devoted his existence to preserving was worth preserving at all. Emperor Velthus had ruled the Velthari Empire for 8,000 years, and in all that time, he had never called a meeting like this one. The imperial throne chamber was filled with representatives from every major species in the empire, but, for the first time in history, they weren't arranged according to the traditional hierarchy. Instead, they sat in mixed groups working together on projects that would have been impossible under the old system. At the center of it all stood President Min-Ho Kim of the Terran Federation, a title that had been created 6 months ago when Earth finally established formal relations with the rest of human space. He looked remarkably calm for someone meeting with an emperor who controlled half the galaxy. Your Imperial Majesty, President Kim said with a respectful bow. Thank you for agreeing to this meeting. I believe we can find ways for our peoples to work together for mutual benefit. Emperor Velthus studied this small, unremarkable being, who had somehow changed his empire more than any war or conquest in recorded history. President Kim, your species has caused considerable disruption in our realm. I prefer to think of it as improvement, Your Majesty, but I understand change can be unsettling. Unsettling? The Emperor's skin shifted to deep purple, indicating extreme agitation. In less than a year, humans have altered fundamental systems that have existed for 50 millennia. Our productivity has increased by unprecedented amounts. Our people are happier than they have ever been, and entire sectors are requesting human advisors. And that's a problem? It's unprecedented. Around the throne room, the assembled representatives were working in ways that would have been impossible before the humans arrived. Korth engineers collaborated with Velthari administrators and human logistics experts to design more efficient space stations. Meltari communicators worked with human diplomats and Yindar analysts to create better trade agreements. The transformation had not been without challenges. 3 months earlier, the Velthari military had attempted to reassert traditional authority by demanding that all human operations be placed under imperial command. The result had been the Empire's first strike in recorded history. "We're not trying to cause trouble," Captain Hyunwoo had explained to Admiral Clethvar during the crisis. "But we can't work effectively under a command structure that doesn't allow us to use our skills. You will follow imperial hierarchy or be expelled from imperial space," the Admiral had declared. "Okay," Hyunwoo had replied. "We'll leave." Within hours, human ships throughout the Empire began preparing for departure. But they weren't the only ones leaving. Thousands of alien workers, scientists, and engineers requested transfers to human space. Entire projects ground to a halt, as the workers who had learned human techniques refused to return to the old methods. The economic impact was immediate and severe. Mining operations that had achieved record productivity reverted to their old inefficient methods. Medical facilities lost their ability to treat multiple species. Supply chains that had been revolutionized by human logistics collapsed back into bureaucratic delays. Within a week, the Empire was begging the humans to return. "This is intolerable," High Counselor Veltheron had complained to the Emperor. "We cannot allow a minor species to dictate terms to us." "They're not dictating terms," the Emperor had replied wearily. "They're just refusing to accept ours." The solution had come from an unexpected source. Zethmari, Veltheron's own son, who had spent months working with human organizational theorists. "Father," he had said, "what if we're approaching this wrong? What if instead of trying to control the humans, we learn from them? Learn from barbarians? Learn from people who have increased our empire's prosperity more in 6 months than we achieved in the previous century?" The proposal that emerged from those discussions was revolutionary. The Velthari Empire would transform itself from a hierarchical monarchy into a cooperative federation. Species would maintain their independence while working together for mutual benefit. Authority would be based on competence rather than heredity. Innovation would be encouraged rather than controlled. It was, essentially, the human model applied on a galactic scale. "President Kim," Emperor Velthis said, "your people have forced us to reconsider fundamental assumptions about governance and civilization. We never meant to force anything, Your Majesty. We just wanted to help." "Yes, and that may be the most disturbing aspect of this entire situation. You have revolutionized our empire simply by being yourselves." The changes had already begun. The Great Bridge of Sector 7, stalled for 8 centuries, had been completed in 4 months using Dongmin Li's flexible engineering principles. The universal medical scanner developed by Haiwan Choi and her colleagues was now standard equipment throughout the empire. The cargo routing system designed by Bora Park had increased trade efficiency by 300%. But the most significant change was philosophical. For the first time in its history, the empire was based on cooperation rather than domination. "Your Majesty," said Master Builder Clanktar, "the humans have taught us that strength comes from working together, not from controlling others. They have shown us that innovation requires freedom," added Dr. Sithara. "They have demonstrated that efficiency is more important than tradition, concluded Controller Vexting. Emperor Velthus looked around the throne room at the unprecedented scene of species working together as equals. Very well. If we are to embrace this new order, let us do it completely. He stood from his throne, an action that sent ripples of shock through the assembled representatives. For 8,000 years, no one had seen the Emperor stand for anyone. President Kim, I propose a formal alliance between the Terran Federation and the Velthari Cooperative. We will share technology, resources, and knowledge. We will work together to explore new worlds and solve galactic challenges. We will govern through cooperation rather than conquest. Your Majesty, President Kim replied, I think that sounds like an excellent idea. The formal signing ceremony took place on Nexus Prime, now renamed Harmony Station to reflect its new role as the center of interspecies cooperation. Captain Hyun Woo, the mining captain whose navigation error had started everything, was given the honor of signing first on behalf of humanity. You know, he said to Regional Administrator Thex Mari, now styled as Harmony Station's Director of Cooperative Operations. When we first got lost and ended up here, I was mostly worried about whether we could still make money on that mining contract. And now? Now I think we might have stumbled into the best business opportunity in galactic history. The transformation continued across the former empire. Species that had been enemies for millennia began working together on joint projects. The rigid caste systems that had defined civilizations for thousands of years gave way to merit-based cooperation. Innovation flourished as beings from different worlds shared ideas and perspectives. Dr. Sora Kang published a follow-up to her original report, titled The Accidental Revolution: How Human Pragmatism Transformed Galactic Civilization. It became the most widely read academic work in galactic history. The humans didn't set out to change our civilization, she wrote. They simply refused to accept that this is how we've always done things was a sufficient reason to continue doing them badly. In doing so, they accidentally started the greatest period of progress and prosperity in recorded galactic history. The story concluded with the launching of the first joint human-alien exploration fleet, designed to seek out new worlds and civilizations beyond the former empire's borders. The ships were crewed by mixed teams from dozens of species, all working together using principles that had been developed by combining human adaptability with alien expertise. Captain Hyun Woo commanded the flagship, a massive vessel that incorporated technology from every member species of the new cooperative. As they prepared to depart for uncharted space, he reflected on how much had changed since that day when Soul's Pride had accidentally jumped into Velthari space. Captain, said his first officer, a young Velthari named Silmaria who had graduated from the new Integrated Officer Training Program, the fleet is ready for departure. Excellent. Signal all ships, we're going to see what's out there. As the fleet jumped into hyperspace, carrying with it the combined knowledge and hopes of dozens of species, Hyunwoo smiled. They were heading into unknown space, but they were going there together, as equals and partners. Behind them, the galaxy continued its transformation. Worlds that had been isolated for millennia opened their borders to trade and cooperation. Species that had known only subjugation discovered the joy of working as equals with their neighbors. Ancient problems were solved through the application of fresh perspectives and collaborative effort. The Velthari Empire was gone, replaced by something better. A galactic community based on the radical human idea that everyone deserved to be treated with respect and given the opportunity to contribute their unique talents to the common good. It had all started with a mining ship that took a wrong turn, and a crew that treated a galactic empire like just another business opportunity. In the end, perhaps that was the most human thing of all, turning an accident into an advantage and making the galaxy a better place simply by refusing to accept that it couldn't be improved.